Hello guys. Please support my channel. This is the Swordmaster's youngest son. In the Manhua 181 to 186 I did this, which is the latest with a drawing. In the novel this is chapter 254 to 260. I hope you like it. Chapter 254, episode 78. The feet of a backup rider, free, Veridine. The eyes of Jean, who fell from Shuri's back, also grew significantly. Why is he coming out of here? And why is the gold bars like this? The fire that hit the gold bar was huge enough to be called a fire horse. As the Holy Land is a gold bullion that can be used for decades. The scale of burning was extraordinary. Did you do this? The moment I was about to ask, I heard another familiar voice. Dear Veridine. We've caught fire all the way back, now run. Jean. Are you sure it's a dwarf physique? A husky voice. It was Dante Hiran. He was initially invisible because he was checking the back of the gold bar to see if it caught fire well. Dante. Even Jean had no choice but to stutter when Dante came out. No, why do these always pop out of the unthinkable? Every time I left the storm, at the foot of Cosmos, in the unknown city of Samel, even now, Jean pulled herself together and looked at the two men. The two of them are already very happy to see their eyes twinkling. I see you all here. There must be something between the three of us. That's right, that's right. Ha, hoo. You were having an accident in Samel at the time, but this time we're having an accident. What is the cat anyway? That's very big. By the way, you're riding a red grave. How did you get to know this creature? It's so nice to see you anyway. Ha. Dante and Veridine pointed at Shri at the same time. When Jean looked at the two innocent men in front of the burning gold bar, she felt a headache. You guys, you just ran away. Didn't you say something? This fire, did you guys make it? The ball of Veridine, accurate, fell. Dante pointed his finger at Veridine. Like a child who is caught in a mistake is nagging. No, you did. It was Jean, not Dante, that Veridine, with a straight face, pointed to Niga. Jean pointed at herself with her index finger, her eyes hop. What, me? When did I? Lord Veridine, this guy just got here, right? The fire must be you. Well, let's just go with what Jean did. He's a backup for Luncandle anyway, so if you're saying he's done it, dope. In Dante's pocket, which was about to wave to Veridine, a lump of gold suddenly fell to the floor. Jean, who looks up and down alternately at Dante and the fallen gold bullion. You, child, crazy. You didn't steal a chunk out of here, did you? Oh, wrong. I just followed Veridine because he said he would give me money if he helped him. Dante. Did you take the gold bullion behind my back? Dante's eyes almost popped out on Veridine's brow. Dear Veridine. Why do you keep saying weird things? The fire was on you, and this is my reward. A gibberish feast. Jean swallowed a sigh, touching her forehead. Yes, Dante, there's no way this godfather could have been possessed by a piece of gold. And Veridine, this looks a little weird. My eyes were a bit tired, pissing. Veridine looked around in a cold sweat. Dante grabbed him by the collar and raised his voice, saying, why are you driving him to be a thief? Oh, anyway. I don't know, this should be Jean's. Otherwise we both get in trouble, Dante. You didn't mention that until you got here. I lost my reason for a moment in anger then. You lost your reason for a moment. The two of us rode that sailboat for 3 days while we were coming here. You've been fine all this time. Are you saying that the image of your family determined to be unforgivable was all false? Veridine twisted himself grotesquely, like a broken spring doll. Veridine, you shut up and Dante explain the situation. I'm running out of time, cause I'm about to have Jipple wizards coming in. Jean, what the hell does that mean? I'm the one who revealed the whole story of this holy country. I've just revealed it in the square, and I'm on the run, fighting the wizards of the Jipple attacking me. What, so you were a bat? You're a bamel. Dante and Veridine thrust their faces close to Jean. All three were a series of shocks to each other. Jean managed to keep her cool. It is only for a moment that the situation becomes funny if even himself joins the march of these fools. And by revealing the fact that he's a backup jockey for Luncandle, the Jipple must kill me. The direction of the escape was intended to wipe out all the gold bars that Jipple had given the Holy Land. Jean, we are meant to be. Dante clenched his fist with a moved face. You and our purpose are the same. Now that Lord Veridin is out of his mind for a moment, he also asked me for help, saying he could not forgive my family. The next housekeeper of the Zippel himself is to blame. In other words, the three had visited the port for the same purpose. Veridin and Dante were resentful to hear of the situation of the Holy Land in the newsletter, and Veridin decided that even though Zippel was his own family, he would come forward and correct the evils himself. Jean and Dante, too, were the heirs of the great Ming family, well aware of how great the choice was. That's why Dante, the next governor of the Highlands, decided to help Veridin, though there was a request. Dante was moved by Veridin's decision. After the incident, his gibberish appearance is being reduced. So I don't care if I set the fire of gold bars. I would have done it if it weren't for you guys anyway. Jean, Veridin fixed his expression and made eye contact with Jean. Our wizards attacked you. To cover up the truth, to preserve the prestige of the family. Jean nods her head instead of answering. Veridin's eyes were dimming. And they're coming after you now? Yes. You sons of bitches, without shame. I'll kill them all. Veridin's hair began to flutter as if it were fluttering in the wind. It's to boost mana. 8 stars. Or more. Jean, who gauged Veridin's mana, swallowed a breath into her heart. When did you get this strong? In his previous life, he was known to be 9 in his 30s. Jean has thought that Veridin's power remains in the 7th star. Since he is a monster who performs super simultaneous singing, he is better than other 8-star wizards, but it wasn't. The mana that began to fluctuate from Veridin now was almost 9 stars at first glance. Calm down, Veridin. The prestige of the family? That's important. How many innocent people are you trying to kill? Suddenly, I remembered the day I first met Veridin. Well, good. That's great, but I'd like to give you some advice as a senior in a similar situation. Don't cut your fingers if you meet another Jiffle later and experience something rather unpleasant. Wouldn't each family be too tired? That's a funny joke, Veridin Zippel. Well, why? If we and Luncandle fight bloodily whenever there's a minor problem, the world won't be left alone. I meant to ask you to think about the people who are suffering from war. At that time, Jean had a conversation while trying to cut Veridin's finger off inside the gateway to the Maytel kingdom. I always thought Veridin was an unknown person. The next housekeeper thought that he would not know about the evil deeds of the Zippel. But now Veridin really didn't know about Zippel's misdeeds. It's just that his behavior is unique, and perhaps Veridin is a far cry from the Zippel he knows. Do you know what this gold bullion means, Jean? This means that if we don't let this go, we will make the Holy Land poor for decades. It means starving more than 1 million people to death. Now Veridin was again showing Dante being moved. Jean seemed to know why he went back and forth like this. You must be afraid. It was Veridin's condition to be angry at the family's misdeeds, but on the one hand, shuddering at the fear of future events. However, anger once again beat fear at the sound of Zippel's wizards attacking Jean. To be exact, the fact that Jean was attacked left nothing but anger in Veridin's head now. Reason and other emotions have disappeared. That if Jean made this choice in the same situation, Luncandle will maim the camp and banish it from the family, regardless of the reason. At a time when the whole family is desperately moving to protect its power, it was impossible for a succession to overturn the situation under the influence of justice. I know. That's why I'm trying to deal with the gold bars even after I revealed my identity. But how can I calm down? It's different when I step up and you step up. As a third party, I will give the Holy Land a cause to refuse gold and run away. And you? If you kill the wizards that come here with your own hands, what next? My father will understand my will. I don't know what to say, but your brother. Karl Zippel also died at the hands of an assassin sent by your father. Karl, the owner of the Four-Horse Tower, was used as bait to call me out. I wonder if it's a fire. The gold, I'm sure he set it on fire. Catch him, surely. Suddenly someone's cry came from afar. The sorceresses who followed Jean, they arrived at the port. Stop. Jean, Dante. You guys go first. Those things I stop. Veridin said in a low voice. Mana was forming a new fire in his hands. Unlike in Samel, the first type of rock salt and salt, the ceremony was completed perfectly. Princess Veridin. It's been a pleasure. Hajin sighed. It like a late adolescence. I understand how you feel, but it's enough to make a mistake in anger. It's not some kind of fire moth. Jean thought there were many ways to end the situation more efficiently and neatly. Okay, we'll get out first, Veridin. Jean. If only we run away, Lord Veridin. Dante turned his head and shouted. However, you lost heroically trying to stop me. Bugak, Jean's right fist stuck right into Veridin's chin. UK. Bam. The next front kick is Veridin, who vomits blood and falls forward. Jean stepped on the back of the fallen Veridin once more, and even completely crushed his head into the dirt floor. A sudden attack led to a rapid mana reflux. Jarrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr You don't want to see this guy go wrong. Come here, too. Jean wrapped Dante like a bojagi with her own robe. Even if it stings a little, keep your mouth shut until I give you the signal. Shri, bite. As Jean climbed back to her back, Shri took Dante in her mouth. Chapter end. Chapter 255, Episode 78. The feet of a backup rider, for, thanks to his small size, he could easily wrap himself with a robe. It would have been too much to hide shoes even if they were about the size of an average adult male. I just heard something stabbing. I'm under the illusion, you can't take Dante out again even if you're not mistaken. Jean looked down at the fallen Veridine. The appearance of twitching convulsions seemed about to faint. The best number to break through the siege of the Jipple wizards was to use Veridine as a hostage, but if he carried Veridine like a flag and forced the wizards to step down, what he suffered would be an official record. Countless reporters will see the scene. Veridine's fainting had to remain only the information inside the Zipple. If possible, after you've been beaten up like this, you're not going to make a fuss in the family again. Even if you die, do as you please. I thought it was Dante's, not Veridine's. The two were not close for no reason. Dante and Veridine were the ones who risked their lives on fiery beliefs rather than efficient choices. Full of gold bars were melting down as the flames continued to intensify. The molten gold flowed toward the sea, not toward the fallen Veridine. It's him. We found Jean Luncandle. The wizards turned their eyes to Jean in unison to Jean, but contrary to the urgent voice, it was not as flustered as before. Some of them set up protective shields upwards in preparation for the Ming sword, while others camped out in preparation for the well-matched attack spells. Jipple's wizard is aiming for him as many as 20, but he is not nervous. It was because he no longer had to hide the fact that he was a horse prosecutor, as he revealed his identity and the alias of Barmal in the square. Of course, in the future, Jipple was able to put pressure on Luncandle, citing the poison, but Chin thought that's the family's business. If Luncandle had judged that he was not capable enough, he would not have revealed his identity in today's square. No, he wouldn't have even set a goal of becoming a housekeeper after returning from the first place. Woo, mana gathered in Jean's palm. The wizards of the Zipple did not miss the sight of the mana scattered in the atmosphere being purified in an instant and gathering in the hands of the Chin, but I couldn't believe it even with my eyes. Magic? You've gathered that kind of mana, said the chief wizard with astonishment. It was no different reason for his embarrassment. It was because Jean did not just collect mana. Even the wizards, who had been hearing the sounds of geniuses until they entered the Giffle, were drinking so fast that they were surprised. Mana much more pure than even the wizards of the Jipple. They have thought that this level of mana operation can only be seen in pure blood Jipples, but Luncandle, the young backup rider. Attack launch. The wizard shouted, clenched his teeth. I don't know what the goddamn Luncandle did, but I don't know. It was terrible to imagine Luncandle performing magic above them. As soon as his horse fell, a bundle of rays was fired from the wands of the wizards. Shri twisted her body with her eyes shining, shock. Jump from side to side to avoid the mana rays, and claws off the things that cannot be avoided. The wizards continued their next magic with this degree of calm anticipation. An elemental system of magic was pouring in, including lightning calls, flame barriers, and freezing prisons. Shri can't stay on the ground for a while trying to avoid it all, and they're even preparing a settlement. In Jean's view, the Jipple wizards were responding well to themselves. Despite its numerical superiority, it calmly chose the orthodox method to erase the variables, and 3 or more elemental spells pressed the Jinn harmoniously without being wasted, but that's it. They are not able to calculate the unexpectedness that only real geniuses have. It was only natural. They could not imagine that they were not geniuses or that Jean had magical insights that far overwhelmed them. Flash. Shri leaped high to avoid the sudden eruption of flames from the floor. If they were aiming for this, the Jipple wizards held their sticks together and aimed at Shri. 10 people, except for those who spread the shield, were singing the same magic, as they did when they first shot the mana beam. Tear it apart. Hell Wind, 8-star wind system attack magic essence. An artificially formed opaque wind was flooding into Shri and Jean. The orbits were difficult to predict because of the sharp, fuzzy shape of the blade around Orser. Above all, it was impossible for Shri to avoid it because she had no land to overcome because of the range. You can't miss it, and it's hard to beat it with a sword, so of course you chose this. However, it was also the development Jean wanted that the Jipple wizards fired Hell Winds, Yokshin, just before the Hell Wind reached. A small crack formed in the air above Jin's head that it was a crack for the formation of a sphere in the station stream. If the mana fluctuates and causes a whirlpool, the crack will grow and become a sphere of the Yokshin stream. 9-star horsepower is needed to make a complete turnaround, but Jean has usually carried out an incomplete reverse with 7-star horsepower, but now Jean was not trying to turn the tables on her own mana. 10 Hell Winds devoured Shri. The hellish mana was mixed up, and Shuri's falling scene was completely hidden. Sweep, swag, roar, but what came to the wizards was not the sound of Shri's flesh and bones being cut, but the strange noise. As if the mana of hell is being divided by something like ASAW. It was an extremely short moment, but the wizards instinctively felt something was wrong. Easy, Shri and Jean, who landed on the ground, looked fine without a single scratch, and less than a second later, the first crack that had spread to create the reverse was forming the largest sphere ever developed by the camp. For wizards, it feels like the sky is covered. It also caused grotesque binge drinking like the roar of a demon. For a moment, as soon as the wizards understood what happened, Jean released the backflow that had been unfolded in the air with simultaneous Yangchang. You can use the least amount of mana to activate it. Changed the direction of the hellish wind that gathered by swinging back the backflow that was floated in the same time as a shield. Thanks to this, the hell wind was sucked into the cracks of the stream, and it became the driving force for the stream to fully unfold. It's to absorb the hell wind and give it back to the Jipple wizards. Although Yokshin, which was more than 9-star power, was started, the only mana Jean used was one reverse flow width. Of course, for the majority of wizards, not Jean, it was an area that was only theoretically possible. At least 5 new gods were included in the station stream that Jean had just opened in the air. The speed at which Yokshin's formula can be completed in just a few seconds, the trick to see the number of opponents clearly, the simultaneous mortuary, and the sophisticated control ability to pick a magic starting point on a moving vehicle, and in a situation where failure can kill you as much as you want, the confidence to achieve it all without wavering. This is how magic should be written. A stream of blood flowed from Jean's smiling mouth. The reverse flow did not start due to excessive mana operation. When the backflow was swung like a shield, the reactionary that prevented the hell wind only hit the chin on my forearm. I felt a tingling sensation in my mouth. In other words, except for that, there was no damage to Jean. Power protection, ma'am. The team leader, who first figured out the situation, shouted like a madman. About half of the wizards didn't even know what happened until then. The level of understanding magic is different. The team leader was looking at Jean and thinking like that. If Jean had such a talent and had known that he had learned to draw, he would have responded differently. The wizard of Jipple, if not the elite or the express, was 21. How could they have expected to lose the battle of magic to the reserve rider of Luncandle, less than 20? Yay, Yokshin, which has absorbed all the mana of the hell wind, began to suck it up in earnest. The protective shield, which was the first to prepare for Pluto's sword, was crumbling. The offensive team was opening a new shield, but the urgent mortuary was always poison to the sorcerer. Gasp. There were already a number of wizards in the backflow. It was too much for talented people to open their shields right after they performed a magic trick like a hell wind. The moment the hell wind was absorbed by the backwater, the defeat of the Jipple wizards was already a set step. You shouldn't have opened the shield, but you should have thought of turning off the mana and running away. If we were lucky, we could have survived at least one. I've never felt inferior or defeated to Runkandle's brothers and knights in my previous life. I've never felt envious of the wizards of Jipple. At that time, Jean started magic at the age of 25, and reached 5 in 3 years, so he didn't have to be intimidated by the talented. Although he had similar feelings for Veridin, he thought he could have overcome it if he had started magic early. And the idea has become a reality now. Veridin became the only person in Jipple who liked him. Srung, Sigmund escaped the search. The moment the blade glistened in the sun, the wizards felt like death row inmates. There is no means of resisting the threat of reverse. Drop it, Shri. Shri lowered his posture and ran forward like an arrow. Wizards who had not yet fallen into the backflow launched a check attack, but they were only cut like leaves by Jin's sword with brain. From now on, it was not a fight but a massacre. Of course, Jean had no intention of keeping a single person alive. There's no personal feeling, resent that you belong to the Zipple. Ninuhum. Zipple, surely, will kill you. Fortunately, it would have been more disappointing if I had begged for help. Squirt. Took every time Jean swung a sword, the wizards' bodies fell on the floor like a broken doll, and just arriving at the port, a group of reporters covered their mouths at the sight. What the hell is going on? The golden castle of the Jipple, which is being burned and melted, and Jean, who is killing the wizards of the Jipple in front of him. From evening on, the world will be covered with articles about him. Chapter end. Chapter 256, Episode 78. The feat of a backup rider. 5. After killing all the wizards, he immediately left the harbor. Then he deliberately turned around a few alleys to confuse the chase, and threw himself into the sea in search of a previously seen cliff. Stubborn, Mia. As soon as he reached the sea, Shri made a cheerful cry. It meant that there were no closer pursuers. He wiped the sweat off his forehead by picking out breaths. You may come out now, Dante. Jean pulled Dante out of Shri's mouth. As soon as he untied the lobes that were winding Dante, Jean was left to be startled. What kind of blood was stabbed in Shri's tooth earlier? In addition to the inside of the robe, Dante was literally wet with blood. I wonder if Dante Ilson is dead. It's all right, it's all right. It's all right. There's a hole in your shoulder. I'm sorry. Oh, that's a little deep. Well, the beast did it. There must have been no malice. Jean shrugged out a healing resin. Dante, who roughly cleans blood with seawater and applies resin. His whole body was stained with a training scar. Baradin said something similar when Murican scratched him at the Maytel transit gate. These things, I thought they were completely different, but they're very similar. Jean. What are you going to do now? Asked Dante anxiously. It was wrapped in a robe, but Dante also recognized that Jean had killed the wizards, the fact that he used magic. Dante did not know the oaths of Jipple and Lundcandle, but he knew that Lundcandle strictly forbade magic. Well, we'll just have to run away for now. It's too early to be completely relieved. What were you going to do? You didn't think you could set fire to gold and run away with that sailboat? Well, I was thinking of it. The sailboat Dante and Veridin had come aboard was not a thing worthy of escape from the pursuit of the Zipple. You two would have been in big trouble if you hadn't met me today. Veridin would have died at my father's hands, and Hylan would have suffered tremendous damage because of you. When Jean hit his back, Shri picked up the speed of swimming. Well, I wasn't in a position to ask you what you were going to do now. At first, I was impressed by Veridin's determination, but it was foolish to think about it. But it's a new set of blood compared to you. A smirk. Two people burst into laughter at the same time. I'm worried about Lord Veridin. Soon Dante smiled bitterly. I'm not going to die, that's a theory. I controlled it in moderation and hit him. That's not what I meant. You're afraid you'll go back to your family and make a fuss. Don't tell me, you don't know why I knocked him out. I don't mean it either. Veridin, and neither did I, but he seemed to have no idea what Zipple had done. There was a moment of silence. Of course there's no such thing as a family that doesn't dust off, but the Zipple went too far. I was actually suspicious of him. Veridin's going to be involved in some of Zipple's misdeeds. Do you still think so? No. What do you think will happen in the future? Jean made eye contact with Dante. I think Veridin has only two futures left. To be banished against a family, or to give in to a family because of a broken will. Maybe he'll be killed like Karl Zipple, not exiled. Veridin of previous life, he was a 9-star wizard at the age of 30, and was also known as the next lyricist of the Jipple. Young wizards were admired by everyone, and their personalities were also excellent, so they were truly loved by the public. However, it was all an issue that was known only by external information in the newsletter. What kind of person was Veridin at the time? The next generation of just and brilliant Jipple. Was the image known to the public really his true self, or, in fact, he's succumbing to the family, but he's wearing a good lookout? Jean was spending a completely different teenager in her previous life. In his previous life, he was treated as a scum by his family as he failed to achieve even a single stroke of swordsmanship, but now he has become a backup jockey and is wandering the world, including today's events. There have been several incidents that could turn the world upside down, and some have learned about the wonders of the gods, the behind the scenes of each power, and the truth of the people around them. And I made friends that I might call friends. One of them, Jean, was insinuating to distance herself from Veridin that it was due to the fate of Lundcandle and Jipple. Dante thought that one day Veridin and Veridin had no choice but to point swords at each other. This was especially true after Andre Zipple's use of Mosin stones and his understanding of living experiments. Whether Veridin wanted it or not. In the end, he thought he had no choice but to become a sympathizer, but it wasn't. Veridin set fire to the gold, saying he was ashamed of the Jipple, that he was ready to die and tried to kill his family's wizards, and the biggest reason behind the impulsive decision was the fact that his friend, who revealed all these truths, had been attacked. You shouldn't let that happen. Jean said. Dante smacked his big eyes. That I thought Jean would give a more cool answer. By the way, I don't think it's a bad idea to just become an ally after all the fighting. We'll just play fair and square, and we'll get along. I've never dreamed that the next singer of Gipple would tell such a mellow story. On the last night in the arena, when the three of us were tilting our glasses, that I'm afraid there's something hard to explain to Jean, Veridine. You'd better stop asking the question. That you're always drawing a line on us. Haven't you ever thought it was weird for you guys who don't draw too much line? It was the same when we left Samel, an unknown city, and spent about 2 days together, but now Jean was saying Veridin cannot be left alone. What are you so surprised about? No. Nothing. However, it is somewhat strange for you to say that you must save the ball of Veridin. Let's get to Veridin's idea for now, so let's go there. There. Agit. Shri, speed up. By the way, why did you need money? When the gold bars came out of your pocket earlier, I was a little freaked out. Is there any need for the next Highlander to take care of a little gold bullion? Oh, well, Dante hesitated and continued the back talk. Not long ago, I accidentally broke one of your grandfather's favorite pottery. I don't know about anything else, but he cares about ceramics as much as your body. It was necessary to restore it before my grandfather knew it. The cost of recruiting the master recovery wizard is very high. What? Ron's love of pottery was a famous story among the uninhabited. Some even said that if you want to make friends with High Ran, you should win the favor of pottery craftsmen of the Mila Kingdom. It's a shameful story. Well, that's why IA's the next housekeeper. You can't just drag money out of the family, and if you spend too much money all of a sudden, you'll get a report from Ron. You want me to lend you some money? To Dante, who nods his head. Okay. You are the only one. 6 hours to cross the sea and move forward. Fortunately, the pursuers never found them. The sea where the sun was out was dark without a lighthouse, and only Dante's eyes were shining brightly. January 1st, 1798. The new year has dawned. On New Year's Day, it's common for loved ones to get together to celebrate each other's New Year's Day, to welcome the first sun rising with their lovers, or to sleep well as it's a holiday. This man, Guardian Knight Khan, was covered in the blood, intestines, and bone fragments of a demon, as he did on the first day of 1796. The speed at which Manhua was cut was unusual. He was driving in the middle of the Black Sea 3 nights and 3 nights without even taking a short break, with an anxious look all the way through. Lady. Soren had been feeling Khan approaching for a while, but only after Khan had such a poor voice did he slowly open his closed eyes. You look impatient. What's the matter? The youngest master ended up in an accident. Surprisingly, Siren nodded calmly. As if he had been expecting it to some extent. That it was not Kashmir's letter, but a bundle of newsletters that Khan politely took out of his arms. Runkendal's reserve rider, take down Jipple's golden castle, who are the unidentified strains of Lunkandel and Jean Lunkandel who use magic and brain organs. The youngest member of the gang revealed the bare face of justice and about a great evil named Jipple and Kinselo's biogolem experiments. They were clearly preparing for war. Will the first Lunkandel of the 1700s, who violated the strict laws of the reserve jockey, tolerate this situation? Lonnie Salome, who mentioned Jean Lunkandel as a friend 3 times at King Song's coronation, however, he announced that he would send a regular message to Lunkandel, saying that he would continue to be completely closed for the time being. Except for the time being. The triumph of the backup rider, the newsletter was plastered with such articles. Soren, who was still looking at the articles, had a meaningful look on his face. You've hit it hard. Madame Rosa urgently called the riders. He said he would wait for your judgment, but he was about to release his riders and bring the youngest master to his feet. The newsletters on the magic federal side of Rutero, which Khan followed, had a completely different atmosphere. Keliak Zippel and Lunkandel declare that they will be held responsible. Zippel says it will not supply life magic products to the Huffaste Union in the future. It will remain in effect until Lunkandel sends Jean Lunkandel. As of today, the world's most wanted man on Jean Lunkandel, Zippel, has offered a reward of 100 million gold coins and a lifetime of close protection. The subjects of the biopsy are not Jipple, but Kinselo, the alliance with Jipple, the factless, the malicious instigation of Lunkandel. A reserve rider of the ruling party threatens the peace of the world by announcing a statement that he will fight all-out war with the Runcandle. A faint smile hung around the mouth of Soren, who looked through the Rotaro Magic Federal newsletter. That's a feat. Khan bowed his head and waited for the next horse. When I sent him out to build his reputation, he raised not only himself but also Luncandle's reputation, and Jipple's reputation has been tarnished to the bottom, so it's worth calling it a feat. A sigh of relief in one's mind. No matter how much his opinion is devoted to him, he cares about it. I didn't think it would cover up such a big accident, but at the next word of the Soren, Khan had no choice but to feel disturbed. But apart from that, the youngest was always responsible. Khan. Yes, my lord. Give the youngest a special wanted order. As of now, it is the duty of all riders, former guardian knights and former cadets to find the youngest. If an outsider brings it, promise 300 million gold coins and absolute protection of Luncandle, and announce that it doesn't matter if it's a corpse. Chapter end. Chapter 257, Episode 79. The thought of rich and poor. The families of the two large families came forward and offered a reward of 300 million won and 100 million won, respectively. It was the first time since civilization began to pay a bounty of billions of won. The Sunguk incident was stirring up another round of the already noisy world on a wanted list. Special mercenaries such as the Black Royal Army and the Ghosts have launched their own searches, while mercenaries below have formed an alliance. Even the regular army and knights of the small and medium-sized kingdoms were eager to find the camp. It was a natural phenomenon, as 300 million won in gold is money that could create a nation's economy, but their pursuit was nothing. The two big families, Luncandle and Zipple, were searching the camp most fiercely. Thousands of guardian knights, wizards, subordinate soldiers and allied families are setting up a tracking group to find the camp. Sir. I'm not sure you'll be okay. Gilly sighed. In front of her was a wanted letter from the reserve rider Jean. Luncandle, her colleagues, including her, were all gathering in Tychon to watch the situation. The promises Jean had received from Siren in the past still worked. The very promise that no one in Luncandle can step on the Tychon land without Jean's permission. Thanks to this, the Luncandle Guardians did not visit Tychon in person, but about 50 people were waiting near Tychon. On the other hand, Jipple's wizards have already combed Tychon like a tooth. They searched records of mobile gates around the world to find out all the routes used by Jean Grey and Bammel, and inferred the fact that Jean was based in Tychon. Of course, the Jipple went back with nothing but bluffing. Ignoring the fact that Tychon was a neutral force, he searched the interior of Kashmir's mansion like a clamor, but could not find the camp, because Jean was not in Tychon. It'll be all right. Don't worry too much, Strawberry Pie. Looking at Gilly, who nodded helplessly, Murican crumpled his face. I didn't mean to show any signs of discomfort, but I literally crumpled my face in this shape and that shape to make her laugh. Foot. Yes, don't just keep on crying over such a little fellow and laugh like that. You look good. When Gilly couldn't stand it and burst into laughter, Murakan smiled. Star crazy, is that funny? Varys, who watched the figure still, frowned as she cursed inwardly, and Kazan, surprisingly, crumpled his face around Barry's, following Murakan, big. Looking at Barry's barely holding back her laughter, this time Julian had a similar thought. Kazan, Varys. Crazy guys are having fun, but Julian also had no choice but to smile unconsciously when Yuria approached and poked her in the ribs. So to speak, the world was full of campers, but Tychon was quite peaceful. Until just yesterday, he had been plagued by visits by all kinds of forces. You've just become a big shot, Confucius Jean. He became the most famous person in the world. Kashmir swept his head off with a tired face. No matter how thoroughly the Jipple wizards combed through my safe houses, I'm sick of it. But thanks to all of that, for the time being, the Jipple side has no choice but to be wary of us. You've been searching other people's houses without justification or confirmation, said Elisa, hitting Kashmir on the shoulder. It is true that Jean stayed here, but there was not much justification for Jipple to search for Tychon, a neutral force. As Elisa said, Jipple could not come to Tychon for a while. No matter how much Jipple it was impossible to control the neutral forces outside the Magic Federation. I was surprised when the Vision Guards came. This time it was Enya. Quicantle next to him also nodded. Beacon did not scour Tychon as thoroughly as a Jipple, but the two were still Bayman's unofficial wanted men. In particular, as the name Jean Grey was revealed to the world, Beacon was even tracking the identity of Austin Grey, an alias used by Enya during the Dark Wizardry residences. But the three Academy cadets, whom Jean and Enya played like their subordinates at the time, Chip, Mora and Oral, were still not telling Beeman that Austin was Enya. Thanks to him, Beacon didn't search Tychon as roughly as a Jipple. Oh, my god, but where did Luncandle not come? If it were Luncandle, it wouldn't have been a mess to beat, dig, flip. Jet shrugged back. But I don't know Sir Soren's mind at all. Didn't you think you were too weak? I'm sure he's condoning most of it, and he's still keeping Tychon and Luncandle from touching it, but I never thought he'd suddenly be wanted for 300 million gold coins. Jet seemed very upset about the fact. If you're curious, why don't you go and argue? Hen, this Jet. I can ask you any questions if you can take me to Lord Xiron's Black Sea. Is that crazy? Who's going to whom? And you can't open your eyes and breathe when you stand in front of Xion. Pressed by energy. No, is Mr. Murican not sad? Of course I thought Sir Siren would take care of us. But now that Luncandle is on the verge of killing me more than the Zipple, I'm so sick. It must have been done by the boy's father because he had an idea. I told you yesterday. What the hell are you thinking? Well, I have a son, too. I would never do that. Oh, yeah. I know how you feel, but you're taking it out on me, aren't you? Hey, Mimmel. How do you manage your kids? But I agree with Mr. Jet. How do I live when Confucius, who lost at least one, gets caught by bounty hunters or Luncandle? As Enya shouted, Murican opened his eyes wide. No, why can't you live? For me, the true Confucius is like light, life, and life. A world without Confucius is worthless just to imagine. I can't do this, Mr. Jet. Let's go and argue with Sir Siren. Sure. Clap, soon Enya and Zet met hands and left the room. Murican kicked his tongue looking at their backs, and the rest of his colleagues were in a huffy mood. Quickantle breathed a deep sigh. Of course, it didn't happen that two people went directly to Siren. The two were to go to Latry's cookie shop and drink cookies and tea, talking behind the scenes as much as they could. Scratching, the argument scratched the ear. The sense of self-reflection has proven so far, and when my ears are itchy, loud customers always come. Boong, Mott the eyelid opened the portal. Criticism. One person who, unlike Enya or Jet, can really come to Siren to argue. As soon as he saw Soren, he raised his voice. My ears are going deaf. I'm going to melt the soy sauce. What the hell are you doing? My position, no. Don't you think about my daughter's position? She's not even engaged, let alone married, but she's in her shoes. It was ridiculous, but Siren closed his eyes and did not answer back. Looking back, Talaris was originally this kind of person. Soren, think carefully. You don't know how bad public opinion is for killing his son, Karl Zippel. The situation in Zippel and Luncandle is different, Talaris. You don't think Jean's done any harm to Luncandle, do you? I've only given them a lot of benefits. But I can't give you a prize, but you're wanted. Except he broke his vows, there's plenty of justification for him. Boong, Boong. Mott also burst into wild tears as if he knew Talaris's sad feelings. However, when the poet looked at her, she turned her eyes to one side and looked at her. It's an issue that has already been decided. There's no reversal. My God, are you really going to kill Jean? Of course, an answer without hesitation. Talaris tried to scream, and took out a cigarette from his bosom and asked. Then, after burning all the cigarettes in one breath, he bit a new one. Talaris, who finished 5 cigarettes in such a short time, stared at Siren. Soren, did you happen to have been eaten up by chaos while fighting the kings of the Black Sea? After I got to the level of self-belief, I felt like I was losing my humanity, but, not this one. We can't do this without going crazy. Surang, ice gathered in Talaris' right hand, forming a sword. Manbing, it was the new sword that chose her. What are you thinking? If you were really sunk in chaos, as the master of Manbing. And I can't just watch as a friend. While counting to 3, give me the assurance that you're fine. If not, I'll cut it. 1, 2, Soren, who was watching Talarius, smiled faintly. You haven't forgotten your promise. Take the sword, Talaris. Your prediction is wrong. The conversation so far was a test of a poetic argument towards Talarius. Talaris' summoning of Manbing was also a gambler to hear the truth of Soren. If he didn't do this, he wouldn't be able to give himself a hint as a foreigner, no matter how much his friends would do. She also kept in mind the possibility that the theory was really eroded by chaos. The Talaris gathering ice behind her, the earth in the middle of the Black Sea was frozen in a huge fan shape. Her power was frozen in such a vast area that her eyes could hardly follow. You don't know where the charming Luncandle's lion is going, and how only such an eccentric old man is left. Yeah, tell me now. What the hell is your intention? Asterisk asterisk asterisk, my father gave me another chance. How can you interpret that? You've got a piece of your mind, too. Luncandle, like Zipple, has been wanted by your father himself. It can't be a simple show-off. Dante replied, putting down the newsletter. Even if I hide you from my own family, I'm not confident I won't be seen for more than 2 months. Here, Lord Veridon's villa will be the same. If Luncandle and Zipple put all their efforts together at the same time, there was by far no one in the world who could not find them. Everywhere in the world you hide, you're bound to catch your tail. Furthermore, there was no hope for a famous person like Jean. That's right, if you get caught, you'll never survive. As far as I can tell, on the contrary, if I don't get caught for more than a year and go back to my feet, my reputation will pierce the sky, and I will be a backup jockey who has been fooling around from Jipple to Luncandle. It's a disgrace that Jean made fun of Jip Ple. That it was disgraceful that the Luncandle was played by Jean, and ironically, the honor of the family was high. That Lord Zyron will seek for you. You won't be wanted for the reserve jockey Jean Luncandle. But there was no wanted order for the rider Jean Luncandle in the first place. Huh. I think you'll make it somehow, but I honestly don't know. Are you sure you're confident you'll survive a year or more from Luncandle and Zipple? It was impossible, even if it were Jean, to hide in the hands of the people. However, the story was different if it were the land where his story was different. My father knows I'm going to hide in La Perosa. Because you would have been briefed by Lord Kashmir, there was no need to tell Dante even that. As soon as I was about to answer with a smile, I could see the villa's exclusive mobile door shining through the window. Bowing. Jean and Dante lowered themselves close to the window. It was because it was not Veridon that escaped from that mobile gateway, but it was not that there was no possibility that it was any other Zipple. Chapter end. Chapter 258, Episode 80. Veridon's memories. It was one person who got out of the mobile gate. But I couldn't identify my face accurately by wearing a mask on my hood. I don't think it's Veridon. As far as I can tell. Jean and Dante said, even though his face was not visible, his body shape was completely different. The man who had escaped the mobile gate had long been in a disciplined warrior's body. Moreover, he wore a long sword around his waist, so it could not have been Veridon. It's my villa address. Everything that happens here is never monitored by the family, never involved. I'll let the butler know their names and make sure they don't have a problem finding them any time. I remembered what Veridon said, giving me the address here. Oh, are you a butler? When I first came here, there was no one. As Dante said, the two have yet to meet the character, butler. When I came to the villa, there was no one, and the door was locked, so I tore it open and waited for Veridon for 3 days. You're a little strong to be a butler. That's true. The eyes of the mask touched the broken gate. Shoot him, with the sound of the waves indifferent. The mask pierced for a long time to examine the broken gate. Apparently something was displeased, and the two somehow became heavy-hearted. Soon, the mask pulled out a long sword. You seem to think there's an intruder. Oh, why don't you go out and be honest? If that mask isn't Veridon's, it's right to kill or subdue it. You don't know, but I'm in trouble if I get caught now. We could not rule out the possibility that the mask was the sewage of the Jipple. He picked Jindo Bradamanti and triggered Malta's run. Dante had been torn for a while, then tore up the lobes to make masks and follow behind Jean. The two men, carefully out of the corridor, settled down. Hiding at the entrance of the room on the left and right sides of the hall, respectively, soon I began to feel the presence of the mask. He was walking in the hall in a deadly spirit, as opposed to the two men who had killed their spirits. As soon as the mask was about to pass in front of the room where the camp was located, the hiding Jinn came upon him. Jean skillfully grabbed the back of the mask and held the blade against his neck, and at the same time dropped the sword held by Dante, who ran at the same time. Don't yell. You can live by answering only questions. Sheer perfect subjugation. But Jean was feeling a strange sense of incompatibility. The mask seemed to have never lost its composure, even though the blade of the knife touched its neck. Who are you? The mask did not answer. Don't make me ask the same question again. It's your last chance. You're no. The moment Jean tries to continue his threat again, suddenly the mask's body disappeared. To be exact, what forms his body has turned into water. Therefore, Jean, who was tightening the sword around his neck, was disorganized, and Dante looked around in astonishment that it's a dragon. I realized it intuitively. The mask is the dragon, especially the dragon of the god of water, Itelmion. More than 80% of dragons working in inns were in a situation with Zippel. Then the water dragon you've just met must also be the servant of the Zippel. The water dragon, which turned into water, was already flowing toward the end of the corridor, Jean and Dante, hurrying after him. Dante knew that even if Jean didn't explain, he shouldn't let that dragon run away. However, their worries were groundless. I've never seen such bold men before. Veridin deserves attention. Before he knew it, the water dragon shrugged, forming a human figure again at the end of the corridor. Stop coming at me, I thought you were an intruder and I was just trying to kill you. Jean and Dante looked at each other. What brings you here? Did Veridin send it? The water dragon nodded as Jean saluted with a bayonet. What, should I say it's from Veridin? I'm the butler here. Don't look at me so strangely. Is there a law that says dragons should not be butlers? I didn't say anything. I've never seen it with strange eyes. Really? Then that's enough. The water dragon took off its mask. She had a fine face that didn't match her swollen muscles at all. I could even believe it was a woman when I saw her face because of her flapping blue hair that reached her shoulders. You mean Veridin was a contractor for Itelmion? At the moment, my mind was confused that I never thought Veridin was a contractor of God. In his previous life, he was only known as 9-Star, but he was never found to be a contractor, and the Itelmion contractor wasn't in my previous life. Of course, Jean couldn't have known everything. Back then, he didn't even have an information organization like the Seven Colors, so access to undisclosed information was limited. Above all, Veridin was a contractor. Come to think of it, there was nothing surprising. The Zippel is the family with the most contractors, and the contract with God is usually determined by talents and potential. Veridin is the most talented of the second generation of Zippel, so it was only natural that he was a contractor. My name is Tuyen. Looks like you're Jean Luncandle and Dante Hylon. Nice to meet you. Tuyen, I think there's an intruder. Before Jean could answer, a new presence suddenly appeared outside the villa. The dragon, who called the water dragon Tuyen friendly, lowered his long neck and looked down at the two with his head in front of the hall. Oh, aren't those kids Veridin told you about? That's right, Pinia. Did you say Jean Luncandle and Dante Hyran? Nice to meet you guys. I've missed you at least once. Pinia turned into a human and smiled broadly. She was a Jiryong of the god of the earth. Rick taught at this point, even Jean could not help but be embarrassed. Dante looks at Jean and the dragons alternately, completely bewildered. You're here to see Veridin? Asked Pinia as she approached the gunshot. Yes. Maybe he'll be here in an hour. We have some things to prepare until he comes, so take a rest in the drawing room. By the way, did you break the gate? As the two nodded, Pinia sighed. Next time, there's a key under the big rock at the entrance, so if you don't have us or Veridin, open it with it. If anything breaks down, it's quite tiring to airlift the materials here. Jean and Dante nodded in a daze, then Tuyen and Pinia moved on to the warehouse next to the villa. Without further explanation, what they brought, surprisingly, was a cleaning tool. What are you doing? Stay in the drawing room. Are you trying to clean up before Veridin comes? My mind has become complicated. Neither did Dante. He even said, we'll help. What are you talking about? I can't make you do chores. I'm going to be scolded by Veridin. When Tuyen began to mop the floor with water forming, spraying it on the floor, Pinia pushed the two men's backs. Jean and Dante were eventually forced to sit in the drawing room. Somehow I felt very uncomfortable. Are the dragons cleaning up now? The two dragons, as deacons, were trying to clear the villa before Veridin arrived. That's right. Well, I'm glad you're not the other Jeepel's servants. It's a little embarrassing. I sat still and waited for the cleaning to finish. Dante was restless as if he had been sitting on thorns all the time, and Jean agonized over which of the two would be Veridin's guardian dragons, water. Earth? Which way? And the trouble was resolved an hour later, as soon as Veridin arrived at the villa. Friends. It's so nice to see you again like this. I thought it was the last time, but my guardian dragons weren't rude, were they? Guardian dragons. Veridin certainly expressed the dragons so, and the two dragons bowed their heads and greeted Veridin politely. In many ways, shocking scenes followed, but Jean decided not to panic anymore, whether he signed with two gods or was hiding something. The fact that I risked my life against the Jipple remained unchanged. Jean also had a lot to hide from them. By the way, I don't know Dante, but I didn't know Jindo was here. Did you worry about me while I was wanted? I'm so touched that I'm about to cry. Look at this, my eyes here. It's moistened. Have you got a little cold? Yes, thanks to you. I took a quick turn back then. I would have died if it weren't for you. To my father. Oh, I thought I was actually going to die. The mana reflux was so severe that I still have a headache. Veridin struggled to speak in a sly tone. The three men looked at each other without a word for a moment. Then the dragons came out of the car. Jean. The plan is, you have a plan, right? There was a bitterness in Veridin's eyes when he said so that he asked if he had any plans because he didn't have the right way to help Jean. That it was no use to listen to the rebellion without thinking back and forth, as when a gold bar was set on fire, Veridin was so miserable himself. Jean saved herself, but she couldn't even help her. He's looking for his own family, but he's looking for a camp with his eyes on Luncandle. For Veridin, there was no way for Jean to survive. Why are you so serious, Veridin? I'm not the kind of person who doesn't care about things like you, so I've already made a living. Really? So don't worry about that, and I have a suggestion for you. What is it? Get rid of the name Jipple. Cup. Dante spat out the tea he was holding. In addition, I dropped the teacup I was holding and burned my thigh, but I couldn't even describe it as HOT was because Jin's remarks were so shocking. I plan to completely destroy the Jipple in the future. And you don't go with that name. Your brothers who died in my hands, and your uncle, were all doing terrible things, including biopsy. As expected, it was you who hurt my uncle. It was revealed to the world that Zippel's death was now, Bamel, or Jin's. It was thanks to Dino's reannouncement of the tragedy of Cologne when he wrote an article about the Holy Land incident. How far do you know? What? Jipple, what your family is preparing. Veridin smiled bitterly. Well, I don't know. How far did I know? I'm asking you seriously. I answered seriously, too, Jean Luncandle. Have you ever experienced anything like this? I'm trying to keep a diary, but when I checked the diary I wrote yesterday, I found that it was completely different from my memory. What? My memory is being manipulated. By someone. Originally, I thought you were the culprit, because you've never done this since he died. But look at this. Veridin took the note out of his arms and opened it. It contained a diary on December 25, 1797, the day after Jean made his identity public. December 25, 1797, I would have died yesterday if it weren't for him. I'm fed up with the family's judgment, but I never thought I'd lose my temper like that. His jaw still tingles. I saved my life thanks to you. He was right in his judgment. My father might have killed me if he had harmed the wizards of the family. It almost ended with them. I hope they're both safe. The name was not written, but it was referring to Dante and Jean. It's a diary I wrote as soon as I finished treating the mana reflux. However, after further treatment, I lost my memory of this day. I can't even remember the moment I set fire to a gold bar. When I said I didn't know you'd be looking at Neo Hill the minute I got here, I only acted based on this diary and articles. Chapter end. Chapter 259, EP 81. Trackers. 1. Jean, memory manipulation. What does that mean? Dante opened his eyes wide. I felt like my back was cooling down. Literally. The family has been going my way for a long time. Memory manipulation is not impossible in magic theory. Veridin said it was theoretically possible. There have been rumors that the special lease on Bitions also secretly performs memory manipulation, but in fact, only Jipple had the ability to manipulate memory. Dante realized that Veridin's words were no joke, and for some time he had a stunned look on his face. I can't believe it. Why the hell? By fabricating your memories, what are you trying to get? I'm not sure about that. It's the first time since my uncle died, so maybe the Elder Zor. Veridin paused, crumpling his forehead. My memory must have been fabricated at my father's command. I don't know what it means. Especially in this case, I have no idea. I didn't see anything I shouldn't have seen, and everyone in the world knows that my family tried to cover up the Holy Land with money. Maybe it's because memory manipulation isn't perfect. When Jean, who was listening, spoke calmly, Veridin's eyes grew bigger. Oh, that sounds good. He might have touched the day's work, originally trying to erase another memory. Even our family won't be able to do such a perfect job. Are you going to answer so brightly? But I feel like I've got a clue. That's a little convincing. By the way, what memory was originally intended to be erased? There was nothing special in my recent diary. It's speculation everywhere. I'm saying that because I think that speculation is right. Even if you do, you know better than I do. What your family was trying to erase from your head. Oh, I'm getting another headache for a little brainstorm. Jean was recalling the day when Ratri returned to Taiken in the past. Confucius Jean, I have something to tell you first. About 3 hours ago, my daughter's guardian dragon came back. Latri's back, yes, but there's something strange. You don't seem to have any memory of the missing period. I'm with my daughter now, but she didn't seem to understand. Wasn't it a kidnapping? No, Quicantle confessed to Beretta himself. At that time, I thought it was strange that Latri's memory disappeared. In Ratri's case, I expected Zippel to remove his memory, but I never thought he'd manipulate Veridin's memory. Maybe Veridin was lying. Or he could have been mistaken, but Jean decided to exclude the family. It's clear that Ratri's memory was erased by the drinking stone. I wiped out all the memories of the abduction. Instead of killing him, he used the cumbersome method of memory manipulation to make sure Asmo's contractor didn't get into trouble. Then Veridin's memory manipulation may also be related to the drinking stone. Maybe this guy risked his life to set fire to the gold bars, not just because he was angry about the Holy Land incident. Veridin had already witnessed the drinking stone, or other vice of the Zippel, before setting the gold bar on fire, and in the midst of confusion about it, when the whole story of the Holy Land case came to light, it was impulsively opposed to the family. Jean, who thought so far, sighed in his mind. The headache that is appealing now and the unstable appearance at the time of the Sunkuk incident may be a side effect of memory manipulation. However, it was not good to ask if you knew about the drinking stones. Now that I found out that Veridin's memory was not intact, I needed to be careful. If Veridin was angry because of the drinking stone, I didn't know. What else would happen if I took out the word that it was better for Veridin to know nothing until he was convinced to act rationally? Veridine. Yes. In my opinion, there is only one reason why the Zippel manipulates your memory. It's to raise you as their favorite succession. And at the center of it is definitely Keliak Zippel, your father, not the elders. Jean was now convinced. Veridin in his previous life was nothing but a thoroughly bred descendant. Even then Veridin contracted with the two gods, contrary to what is known to the public, but no matter what power he had, his strength would have been used only for Zippel, not for himself. Back then, when there was no distinction between the regression and the Jinn, Veridin had nothing to resist the family. He had turned 30 without knowing what the family was doing and what was happening to him. As expected, right? Damn it, I thought it was a great model succession, but isn't it to my father's eyes? I signed a contract with two gods, and magic is soon 9 stars. Tuyen and Pinia had no other words. They finished cleaning and were sitting by the window over there drinking tea among themselves. The man who contracted with the two gods has never existed in history. Veridin is the first, so to speak, but Dante was not even bothered by the shocking fact that it was a memory fabrication. When Jean's gaze touched the dragons for a moment, Veridin smiled. By the way, you don't ask. What? How I contracted with two gods. That's how much potential you have. And are you going to ask that, in this situation? Well, it's more amazing that you're the magistrate than I signed with two gods. Well, I'm sad to think about it again. Look, you said you didn't kill Kid Adhal. You killed him and took Yokshin. The moment Jean was about to answer, Veridin said the backstabbing. In addition, it was you who impersonated me in the Arkan Kingdom. Hey, Dante. What do you think? I'm more shocked that this guy's been cheating on us than my memory was fabricated. You're a total con artist. I need to report it. You're just saying what you want to say again. Jean shrugged and Dante nodded awkwardly. Dear Veridin, you don't have to strain yourself. What group? You're pretending to be bright for some reason. At the words of Ososo and Dante, Jean felt goosebumps in her forearm. It was the same for Veridin, too, who shook his head, blinking his eyes. No, I'm not. I'm fine now. Memory manipulation, how can a man be safe when he's been done? To the family who believed in that. You can be honest with us, your friends. Oh, it really doesn't matter. There was a moment of awkward silence. Dante was forced to cough with red ears. By the way, it seems like you're manipulating your memory, but you're not touching your diary. It's managed by those friends. Veridin beckoned the dragons. Does your guardian dragons know about memory manipulation? I know, but few in the family know that I am a contractor and that there are 2 guardian dragons. But why don't you do anything? Because Itelmion and Ricta don't say much. Maybe the 2 gods decided that memory manipulation was not harmful to me. Rather, it seems like he wants me to be tamed and become a housekeeper as soon as possible. Being the housekeeper of the Giffel means being the #1 person in the world that it was, of course, perfectly good for the 2 gods who chose Veridine. Not only will their status rise, but they will also be able to serve other contractors in a family that I can't read the intentions of the 2 gods right now, but Jean somehow felt disgusted. The strangely polite attitude of the guardian dragons was also on my mind. A word like that flashed across my mind. Veridin was not living his own life, but the will of others. That's the will of conspiracy and vice. You thought I was like a doll, didn't you? Crazy. How did you know? Jean and Dante looked at each other in surprise. Dante was thinking the same thing as Jean. So, what are you going to do? Asked Jean, fixing her expression. What? To get out of the Zippel. Oh, that's... It's hard. After you become a jockey, it would be more realistic to take me as a prisoner. It's an all-out war. And I don't know how mean your brothers are to me. Runcandle and Jippel fight, even if they're not you. That's true, Jean. I'm responsible as I am. If the family is going the wrong way, shouldn't I fix it? I'll normalize everything. I'm going to return the Zippel to the proud family I knew. That's not a realistic story. I don't think there's anything you can't do if you help me. Unless we're friends, it's not that we're not. It's impossible for Luncandle to help Zippel. You're so flattering, you're trying to be upset again. Of course I can help you personally. But then what? To help you is to make a crack in a Zippel. If you succeed, you'll probably have a huge crack that you've never had before. Will Luncandle, and the other forces, just keep an eye on it? It couldn't have been. The moment Veridin cracked within the Zippel, all kinds of forces would rush to bring down the Zippel. Above all, Veridin's assumption was wrong from the start. And could you be the same person you are now? Memory will continue to be manipulated. Can you keep your sanity? I don't think it's an area of will or belief. You have to get out of the Zippel, Veridine. You think if I don't leave the family, I'm going to be corrupted? Yes. That's possible. I can't deny it. But Jean, if you were me, you'd make the same choice. I'm not leaving the family. No, if it were me, I would have left Luncandle. If I thought I had to live a life where my will was fading away without knowing it. Jean. Veridin smiled and said back. I'm not a great man like you. With that calm remark, Jean could not say anything more. Veridin was no fool either. He knew best how scary it was to have his memory manipulated and his ego transformed. The gap between the diary and the reality, and the terrible confusion that comes from it, has been a problem that has been felt for years. Jean, I understand Lord Veridin. I want to respect the opinion of the public. It was no different why Jean had repeatedly stressed Veridin to leave the Zippel. Because he did not want the future that he or other Luncandle brothers had to kill. It's a little embarrassing, but if you don't let me go, I think we can change our family enough. I don't mind the loss of family power. Huh. At the moment Veridin said so far, suddenly a bright light appeared on the mobile gateway outside the villa. Someone came to the villa. And now, the only people who could come to the villa were members of the Zippel. At the same time, the 2 guardian dragons, sipping teacups, rushed like lightning and blocked Veridin's way that he seemed to be trying to protect him. Tuyen, Pinia. Unlike before, when they were polite, the 2 dragons were seen raising their spirits in a dry manner without even answering that it was a group of wizards that left the mobile gates. They were wearing grey robes without any patterns. A grey lobster that does not symbolize white knights or formalities, or even informs itself that it is a Zippel. Jean didn't know what it meant. As soon as they came out of the mobile gate, one could guess one thing from the speed at which they handled mana and prepared for solidarity and almanac magic. It's clear that the Black Knight of the Luncandle. It was a self-evident fact that they visited this villa to catch themselves. Jean, I didn't call you. When Veridin sounded urgent, Jean nodded. Veridine. It's not me, it's really no. I know, I won't misunderstand, so don't panic and order your guardian dragons to protect Dante, too. Those things, they seem to intend to get rid of this whole place. Outside the window, the whole sky was already red with the banal magic of grey wizards. Chapter end. Chapter 260, Episode 81. Trackers, 2, how did those wizards come to me? It was obvious. Either you got some clues by manipulating Veridin's memory, or there was a bug or a sense of magic in the first place. Either way, it wasn't very unexpected development. I thought if we had a tracker here, we'd have a white knight or another elite wizard or a mower, but... Those grey lobes, what are they? He was dressed that he didn't even remember in his previous life, but I could be sure. They are superior to any sorcerer they have ever experienced. Jean. Just as Dante was about to reflexively pull out the sword, Jean grabbed him by the wrist. Don't draw. The moment you pick, you'll see yourself as an enemy. That's the atmosphere. I don't feel good, Jean. I don't think they're usually wizards. So you're even more of a shield against Veridin. What are you doing, Veridin? Hurry up and get Dante. Jean, the authors are my aunt's direct wizards. My aunt must have come with me, so I'll talk to her. You're not going to listen if you faint again, are you? What's gonna happen if you cover for me? Ha. Damn, I'm sorry. You don't have to be sorry. Auntie, Kellyak Zippel's sister. Octavian Zippel. Jean knew her name. But as a member of the Zippel, I just kept it to myself, and I didn't think he was important. She was a 7-star retired figure before Jean was even born. Naturally, it was said to be at the level of a pandisaster for a Zippel, and even though she was the sister of the Kellyak Zippel, she had never received public attention due to her relatively low skills and early retirement, the heir of a Jippel, so to speak. Octavia has come here with some of the most famous wizards of all time. You got it. Right. Like you said, he's only a fringe, not a second in command. There's a real power after Kellyak. I don't have the information to tell you yet. Suddenly, Jean recalled what his father had said about Andre in the past. Was she really the number 2 man? Outside the window, in the middle of the chained wizards, there was a man holding a uniquely shining cane. She was Octavia, and Octavia's cane was pointing exactly towards the drawing room where they were. Arg, Jean almost missed the moment when the cane threw up the beam. The light magic, in the form of a ray of light shot by Octavia, was not magic, but an island of a warrior who enlightened the extreme. Srung, Jean pushed Dante toward Veridin and pulled out the sign that it wasn't pulled out to get rid of the rays. Even 9-star armed men could not strike the attack immediately unless they were aware of it beforehand. That it was a stepping stone to avoid fatal injuries and cope with the next situation. A sill-like flash brushed Jean's left cheek. A few strands of hair were cut off and blood splashed, but fortunately Dante fell safely near Tuyen and Pinia. Damage? Not a very fearless one. Ugh. As soon as her low-key talk to herself ended, a crack broke in the spot where Jean had avoided the rays. The thin crack stretched out as if drawn with a ruler was a trace of the whole of the villa. There were 5 such cracks in an instant. Octavia fired a follow-up as soon as Jean dodged the attack, and the purpose was not to kill Jean. An attack to get rid of the villa, so to speak. Where Jean might hide. A huge villa was being cut off casually. Cracks made by rays of light opened, and stones and materials that used to form the villa burst. And the cottage that began to crumble, debris splashed as if the corn were being fried. Scraps flying from all sides were quickly shielded by Jinn and dragons. No, the dragons have been protecting Veridin and Dante since earlier. The cute, chattering and cleaning scene was everywhere with an emotionless look. The dragons even stopped Veridin from reaching Jean. Dante is also unable to escape the shield of dragons. As soon as Octavia appeared, the dragons had calculated that Veridin and Dante would die if they left their shields. Octavia also had dragons, so he was thinking of holding the camp with ease by playing magic. As Jean had predicted, Octavia and his men, the Ghost Squad, concluded that it would be okay to remove the entire island. Certainly, it's not a joke. Watching countless debris break against the shield, Jean was feeling a chill in her neck. A sense of crisis in a long time. Jean said to Dante and Veridin, who were evil in the shields of dragons, with a mouthful, "You think I'm gonna get caught? See you later." All of a sudden, the villa collapsed completely. A black cloud of dust in the dark. Breathe in and bring him to me. Octavia's orders were issued, and at the same time the spectre raised their staff in unison. Then the red-colored sky swirled, shaking countless particles of mana. It seemed like blood rain. The particles of red mana turned into knives and chains and poured into Qin. It was a magic that Jean could not help now. It's the magic of 9 to 10 wizards. The red mana that poked my eyes made my hair stand on end. As we did against the wizards of the Gippel in the Holy Land, hitting with a counter-campus was an unthinkable. Mana. It was the same even if we spread our brains and spirits. The difference in power is too great that if we didn't anticipate this would happen in advance, and if we didn't prepare anything. There must have been no way to make progress this time. Oh, I think it's a little late, squirt. Kong, Jean flung herself aside and struck out the red chains and blades one by one. It's been a long time since I felt like my hands were torn. 10 times at most. That it would have been a miracle to strike out that much. You had to come in there, just as Tuyen and Pinia now protect Veridin and Dante, the guardians who will protect themselves. 2, 3, for whenever he blocked the red horsepower, his physical strength and energy escaped as if he had been cut off by the smallpox. It tasted like death, but the sorrows of the spectre were also getting quite a few shocks. It was only natural that the soon-to-be Lun Candelian, who was just 18, had struck out their regimental magic several times. The island was already being smashed. Every time the red mana taken by the camp hits somewhere, the ground rings and parts of the island are falling off. Of course, it should have ended if there was no condition of Sengpa. Jean looked as if he were walking on thin ice every moment, but that alone hurt the spirit's pride. 7, 8.9 Eventually Jean threw up a handful of blood and knelt on one knee. I felt like I could no longer wield a sword because of the backflow in my body, but Jean was raising the corners of her mouth. The 9th time he struck out the red mana, he saw a dark, huge hole in the middle of the sky. Suhoryong, not singular. It was a plural form, Suhoryong. It was not Veridin's only privilege to be protected by 2 dragons. In the black cavity of heaven, which broke through the bonds of the spectre, the last black dragons left in the ints were showing up. I can't say a word. Even if the old spectre are kicking out of the grave. Miss Ha.as her voice suddenly spread, the swords and chains of the chronology magic, Red Abyss, directed at Jean stopped moving in unison. The spectre did not stop. The spirits and shadows clinging to the red mana were breaking the drive of the Red Abyss. It was the power of Miss Sha. Little boy, how is it? Wasn't it a bit dizzying this time? If this is not the case, when will you ever know that you're the scariest person in the world? Then came Muraken's voice that he was turning the red-colored sky into new darkness. Like that time when the Dark Wizard Society was annihilating, vortexes of great and small spirit were swaying with his wings. It seemed like a fierce dark sea spread out where the sky was supposed to be. In the meantime, Jean was brooding over Muraken's greetings. You think I'm scared? That crazy dragon, you didn't come late on purpose, did you? In fact, Muraken and Misha were later than expected due to the thickening of the framework of the Spectre Belt. However, the truth will not be told to Jean, Kwaea. Even before the spectre formed a new formation, Muraken's breath was shot to the ground. We're working on a new protective shield, following the supermassive regimen of Red Abyss. The sorceresses of the spectre were in a calm atmosphere, not to mention a reverse flow, with their breath unbroken. As soon as the breath was about to strike the shield, Octavia's rays shot up, the rays of light, surprisingly splitting the breath in half, flooded the neck of the Muraken, who did not avoid it, but struck it with wings. Miss Sha was slowly descending to Jean, bearing a red abyss. Muraken and Miss Hara, legendary black dragons, meet in such an unexpected place. As expected, Jean Luncandle was your contractor. Are the wounds Cadden has healed? Octavia, who looked down at the black dragons but didn't even blink, was also a monster. Wizard, if you can go back alive, tell Cadden. The King of Heaven is back. It's not difficult. And the King of the Earth will change, too. Do you think Luncandle can defeat us and ascend to the throne of the world? 1,000 years ago, I must have forgotten the lesson of your old contractor. Then the mouth of Muraken was sealed. It was not a twitch in anger or disgrace. Pooh, ha ha ha, a derisive laugh. It comes from the funny feelings that great beings often feel when they see foolish humans who don't know anything. Who said it was the house of Luncandle that became king of the earth? I'm referring to my contractor now. You talk to your men without even knowing that today was their last chance to change the future. It is not the Luncandelga who pushes out the Zippel and becomes the king of the earth, but the Jean Luncandle. Octavia somehow couldn't laugh at the ridiculous joke. Although he was calm just now with the 2 black dragons in front of him, he suddenly felt like he had a big thorn in his throat. Why, it was a hunch. The ordinary, ominous, intense intuition that every human being often goes through, not the insight of a 10-star wizard, was displeased with Octavia. Good, if the great black dragon warns you this much. You don't have to worry. Ghosts, you don't have to capture them alive. Kill Jean Luncandle. Chapter end. Hi guys, this is the end of our chapter. Please subscribe my channel and like and share for more updates on this platform. Thank you for supporting my channel.